to hear about these motherfuckers. It's time to go. All I want to do is fucking eat. We're not practicing to beat somebody. We're practicing to beat everybody.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. And if you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness is what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I do to the guy across from me. I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box. Not today. It's about us. It's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them. And you strike them and you strike them. That's how you get respect.
Now I am going to pick shit out of them. Physically, I want to break them.
Are you ready, Bulldog fans? Can you feel it? Can you feel it in the air? It's bowl season. Those dogs are back on the practice field. Not nearby, not near me. Keep in mind, I'm only about 20 minutes away from Athens. No, they're in Miami. And they are getting ready to take on those Florida State Seminoles in the Orange Bowl. I know I'm counting down the days. I can't wait to see it. And in preparation of that, and just because I thought it'd be a whole lot of fun, we've got some really cool things going on here tonight. So welcome back in to the latest edition of the How About That Dogs Cast. Now, you know, there's a lot going on. If you've been paying attention to social media recently, my channel and the channel of some of the people that I'm going to have coming on here with me tonight, you know that what we're about to get into tonight, well, it could be a little interesting because the takeover is now. Tell you what, friends, this is one of those things where you think about things and you're like, it could be a good idea. And then out of the blue, kismet or something, somebody else, somewhere else, has the same kind of thought. And then they're brave enough to put it out into the universe. And before you know it, the things just sort of start to snowball. They start to kind of catch up with one another. And you've just got a whole lot going on. And before you know it, magic starts to happen. And that is what is happening tonight. We have some of the coolest dogs creators from the world of TikTok coming on here to share the page with me on YouTube tonight. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the 2023 season. We're going to talk about the 2024 season. We're going to talk about recruiting. We're going to talk about TikTok. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And anything else that you guys might want to drop in the comments, maybe we can get that on here too. We'll just have to see how it goes. Because as far as I know, there are no limits to what we're going to get into tonight. But, you know, it could be a situation where, I'm sorry, doing some stuff here. We could get into the situation where we have more fun than we were expecting to have. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and crank this thing up and welcome in my guests right after this. See if this thing works like it's supposed to. Look at that. Like magic. The magic of television. I'm not alone.
Look at it.
Look at that. Friends, let me tell you who you're looking at here. The little preview should have told you. But we've got Brett down below, right below me. We got the dog father over here to one side, and then just below him is Silverback. Silverback Gorilla is what you know him as over on TikTok.
What's up?
I tell you what, friends, we were talking about it ahead of time, and it's like I was saying, we're going to get into a little bit of everything tonight. But before we do all of that, let's just open the floor and let's let the fellas say a little hello, a little howdy. How do you do? So, Brett, get us started.
What's up, everybody? Go Dogs, as always.
Dog father, let us hear from you.
Hey guys, what's going on? Dogfather from TikTok here, and Randy, I told you guys before we started that side of the YouTube might look good, but I don't know. I think me and this side on the right side is looking a heck of a lot better.
See, that's the bait and switch. When we got started, you told me we were good over here, but I see how it is. Tim, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on? It's Silverback or Shaq or Tim. I've got about 15,000 names between everything that I've been called from the services on through right now. Living out here in Fort Worth, Texas right now, being the biggest dog fan that I can be in Texas, and living pretty good. How you guys doing?
We're
going
good.
Pretty well. I don't know. Over here in Georgia, they tried to drench us this week. It's been raining like, I swear, if the river don't rise, the river rose this week. We were out doing some messing around at the local park this afternoon, and believe me, the river rose. So it's definitely been raining out this way, but we're good. We're doing good. So we were chatting in the green room before the show, and I was letting everybody know that things just sort of happened that we're all here together tonight. So if nothing else, what tonight's going to be is we're just going to get to know each other and talk some dogs, and that's good enough. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to sort of let everybody know about your journey on TikTok, kind of how you got to be who you are, where you are, why you love it, all that kind of stuff. Because generally speaking, my priority is over here on YouTube, and TikTok is fun. I'm doing it for fun and for love of the dogs. But you guys have been on TikTok a little longer than me. So for those people who may not be as familiar with TikTok, just sort of let everybody know why you like it and why you feel at home over there and what you're trying to do. So Tim, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so for me, I originally started on TikTok because my daughter got on TikTok, and I was trying to make sure that she wasn't watching a whole bunch of crazy mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I started an account, and I told a story. I told an old military story about how I had this guy from Louisiana check in, and how this Marine from Louisiana literally ate every gator and every catfish out of the whole pond on base. And I told that story on TikTok, and it just blew up. And I was like, man, people like hearing stories of just weird shit on TikTok. So I just started telling stories on TikTok, and then next thing you know, I had people pissed off at me on TikTok, and then I got kicked off of TikTok, and then I started another TikTok. And then, but I'm a gunsmith and a military veteran by trade, and so I wanted people to learn about gun safety. Also, I'm a big advocate of gun safety. I'm a big advocate of making sure that you teach your kids, that you teach your family, that you don't be afraid of guns, but that you understand them. And so I've been trying to do some gun safety stuff on TikTok also, but you get taken down the minute you put a bullet or a gun in the frame, so it's kind of hard. But that's how it started for me. It started just trying to, like, as a joke, watching my kid, and then it morphed into football because I'm a football fanatic. My wife and I, we don't have any boys, but we go watch all the high school football you can think of in Texas. So we follow football big time, and we love football and sports. And so it's just kept picking up. Every time I got kicked off, I started another one.
Nice. Well, that's what you call sticking to it. And I know you're originally from Georgia, and that's what we Georgia boys do. You just stick to it. You push on through.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's see here. Dogfather, let us know. What are you all about on TikTok?
Well, I tell you, about 3.5 years ago is when I think I started this TikTok journey, and I was kind of like everybody else. My wife and I, when we would get ready for bed, we'd just start watching TikTok and fall into a TikTok hole. But there was one evening she decided to go to one of her friends' house, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try my luck trying to make some content and see what happens. And I don't know if you guys remember, guy's name was Donnie Baker. He passed away earlier this year. He was a comedian. And I said, I'm just going to try this voiceover just to see what happens. And I did it, and I posted it, and it was probably the worst lip sync you've ever seen in your life. I took one take, posted it, not knowing that I should probably try to do this a couple of times to try to make it as good as I possibly could. But I hit send, and it went off, and I started getting notification after notification. And I text her, I was like, I think I either did something wrong or this thing's blowing up. And sure enough, that first video did about 1 million views, and I was hooked. But from that point, I mean, my first love, I mean, you guys know, you see me on TikTok, has always been Georgia football. So I kind of morphed into just doing the majority of my content revolving around Georgia football, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's been an absolute blessing for me ever since that time.
Nice. I have kind of a similar experience as far as the blessing piece, because it's like most things in life. You know, if you give, generally you get. And I've always been one who tries to give the good stuff in hopes of, if anything does come back, it's not going to be bad. So yeah, I feel that same way. So Brett, what about you, man? What you got going on TikTok?
So, like I was telling you guys earlier, my family was trying to get me on TikTok for a while, and I just wouldn't do it. I thought it was all political, and then one night my mom sent me some videos, and I was sitting there watching it. Next thing I know, it was like 4 hours. And it was just funny videos, just stuff that you're laughing at. And then I realized I've been making these videos for years, and they just sit in my phone gallery, or some of them went to Facebook and things like that. And so I'm like, man, I've been making TikToks all this time, and I just didn't know it was a TikTok. And so for me, I just kind of started posting funny stuff, just things that I thought were funny, and things that I was doing with my kids when they were little, and they're still little, but when they were little. And then comes along this Kentucky fan who started trash talking Georgia before the game. And I love people that trash talk before and then they have egg on their face, because
Yeah.
I don't know, that was kind of like my niche there. And people were sending me other videos of people talking trash before the game. Like, I have predictions, and I'm a Georgia homer, but I don't like to trash talk. I don't like to go in and say, well, Bama's definitely going to lose this game because they suck or whatever. If I genuinely think Georgia's going to win, that's just an opinion. But I don't like to trash talk ahead of time. And I love when people do it. So it's just kind of where it went. Me and my wife had a little bit of a weight loss journey there for a year that kind of blew up a little bit as well. But it's kind of morphed into just mainly, like you said, it's Georgia these days. So.
Well, I mean, is there any better content out there? Come on now. I mean, you know, we all like other things that we mess around with, but that's what keeps us happy. Okay, so I think everybody on the YouTube piece kind of knows about me, so I'm not going to waste our time doing that. Let's get on to talking about the thing that the people want to hear, which is Georgia Bulldogs football. Let's just start with 2023, the year in review, if you will. I don't know. I'm really interested. It's just kind of open floor. Like, what are your thoughts about 2023? What did you think coming into it? How did they do? How do you feel as a fan? Any high points you want to point out along the way? Let me know how you feel about 2023, because for me, like, I always come into every season. For me, it's really simple. When there were divisions, I looked at every season the same way, which is to have a successful season, Georgia has to, 1, beat Florida, 2, win the East, and then take your shot in the SEC championship game. And like you, Brett, I'm not somebody who's I'm not going to be out here just barking about how we're going to beat everybody all the time. I respect the game too much for that, right? It's too hard to win. Now, I'm going to root for my team, but I'm just not going to just like blatantly just trash talk just to be trash talking. That's not who I am. So when I look at this season, I mean, you go 8-0 again inside the conference. You go 12-0 again in the regular season. That's pretty good. And I documented the ups and downs along the way throughout the season and offered my perspective on why I thought things were happening the way they were happening. But in all, there's only one team every year that's going to win the national championship. And I have long said that if that is the only thing that's going to help you have a happy season, then you're in for a lot of sadness. So I choose to look at the season and enjoy the growth in the team and what we saw them accomplish and the efforts put forward by guys that we're not going to necessarily get to see again in the red and black, like a Brock Powers or somebody like that. I want to appreciate them playing in every game, because that early part of the season, when people kept saying these games don't matter, they don't count, I'm like, well, go tell those dudes that the games don't count. I mean, have you ever played the sport? I mean, they all count. They all matter. And I wanted to appreciate it. So from my perspective, it was a good season. It obviously can't be a great season because they didn't accomplish the goals that they had set for themselves. But as a fan who didn't take one rep this year, I didn't, have to go sit in one ice bath because I got beat up on a Blood A Tuesday. I'm not going to sit here and say this was an awful season. This was a really good season, and it's not over yet. But that's just me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say that this year I give Georgia a little bit of an overachievement because I felt that the defense was not going to be as dominant as it has been in past years. Just looking at the size and looking at the guys that we had, I knew that the East wouldn't be hard, but there were going to be teams that were going to. I called Mizzou from the beginning of the year. I knew Mizzou was going to be a good team. I always feel like, depending on who Kentucky shows up, which Kentucky shows up, Kentucky can be a tough game. But for me this year, I enjoyed seeing the change in the game. Like I got an offensive firepower that like made me feel good. Like you didn't just see running the football all the time. You saw a little bit of everything. So I enjoyed the football season. The only thing I hated about the football season is I hate that the college football playoffs did what they did. I am not a fan of what they did. I will ring to the high heavens and say that if you're an undefeated conference champion, you should not ever, ever, ever be left out. But other than that, I think my Bulldogs did a hell of a year, and I think that we still have something to show against Florida State.
Yeah, I'll echo Tim's sentiments there for sure. I thought it was a heck of a season. I kind of like him. I thought there would be a little bit of a drop off defensively, mainly across the defensive line. Not to say we don't have good players there, but what we've seen in the past with the Jordan Davis and the Jalen Carters and the Nolan Smith, it's hard to replace those guys and what they meant to the defensive side of the football. Past that, going into the season, what did most of us hear going into it? You've only got one team. You play Tennessee, and that's it. Did we know going into the last part of the season where Kentucky would be, or where Missouri would be, or where Ole Miss would be, and how much of a challenge it made it an incredible season in my eyes. And the fact that Carson Beck started G-Day game and just blew it up then and led this team the entirety of the season, especially after the Auburn game. I am so excited, not just for what he did this year, but going forward in 2024, I think could be very special.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like my question mark coming into 2023 was the quarterback position, right? Stetson was leaving, and we all know what he did over those 2 years. We had question marks whether it was going to be Carson Beck or it was going to be Vandegrift or whoever. And so I was, obviously with an easy schedule, which I know everybody brought that up and threw it in our face. And well, you look at y'all's schedule. Well, look at our schedule the last couple of years. Y'all weren't complaining. We beat half of our team were ranked teams, half of our games. So I just laughed about it. I thought it was funny. It's like, you know what, it happens. And if anything, this just helps us get through this year. I didn't have too many expectations for 2023. And I don't know how everybody feels. I feel like everybody feels like I feel when you've been watching Georgia as long as I have. There were years back 2002 through 2012 where there's a big part of my family that are big Alabama fans, and we used to watch all the games together. And I used to say, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. I want to play Alabama. I want to beat Alabama. And then we played Alabama and we lost. And then we play Alabama again and we lose. And so finally I said, you know what? I don't really care how it happens. If somebody else could just take them out and we just get an easy win, I don't care. We don't have to be the man. We don't have to beat the man to be the man for right now. And so when we won in 21, and we did it beating the man, I was happy. And then 22 was just, that was just, you get cake and ice cream. And so going into 23, I was saying, a three-peat would be awesome. It would be something nobody else has really done. You can put your little asterisk next to Minnesota, but I thought it would be cool. I thought the schedule would help us get there and possibly have a chance, which we did, and we got better as the season went. I'm like Jay. I feel like the surprise of the season to me was Carson Beck, and him coming back is huge. I think that sets us off with the recruiting that we have. I'm sure we're going to talk about that, but with the recruiting that we have coming in 24, Carson Beck, I just think it's all going to be centered around him.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, I just posted a TikTok today, pulled it out of last week's podcast where I was talking about what a big deal it was that Carson was back and how you cannot overestimate what that means. I mean, everybody knows that we're going to the different schedule next year in 24, and there are going to be some tough road games on there. But now you don't have to make those road games replacing both your center and your quarterback. Now you're not having to replace your right tackle, and one of your interior guards. We've gotten some news about who's staying and who's coming back, and now you plug Carson back in there, and it's going to make that transition that much better because not only does he have the talent, which he showed this year, but he also now has the experience, and he's going to have to lead those dudes into those environments next year, and they're still going to be tough. I mean, there's no way around it, and I'm going to beat that bush from now until we play the games, right? There's 100 different ways to think about it, but you have to just know as a football fan that you're in a better position with him returning than if he had decided to not return. So I don't think, again, you can overstate what's going on right there. I think I think that move sets the table, like you said, for everything else that's going on out there. Now, did you learn anything about the team this year that maybe you completely didn't know? I know you mentioned the quarterback, but I feel like that's kind of the treetop, right? Like we all could say nobody really knew. I mean, I thought Carson was going to be the guy. I thought he was going to play well, but he still had to go do it. I didn't know. But we all had that question. Was there anything else that you learned about the team in 23 that maybe you didn't expect?
I'll let you guys go.
I learned that the linebacker board. It depends that we've got a plethora of interior, or had before the transfer portal at least, a plethora of interior linebackers that were just fast. Like the depth at the linebacking core, it seems like that it was like they would mess up one or two plays, and then as soon as they messed up one player, got those two plays out. They were so locked. Those linebackers were. So, linebacker play and linebacker presence to me, being a former, old high school linebacker, I like seeing linebacker play and seeing them being able to make, sideline to sideline speeds. And those guys aren't afraid to go tackle anybody. They were sideline to sideline all year. I'd say that interior, the linebacker presence for me, they did a really good job this year.
And I thought they did too, no doubt about it. As young as they were, I can remember sitting in Sanford Stadium for G-Day, and C.J. Allen, I want to say it was the second play of the game. He got in on Lawson Lucky and made a play that was absolutely ridiculous. And I said to my wife, who was sitting beside me at the time, and I've got this pinned on my Twitter right now, that C.J. Allen will not leave Athens without winning a Butkus Award before he's out of there. Firmly believe it. I think he's got all the talent in the world. You couple that with Raylan Wilson, and like you said, Tim, these young guys we got coming in, that linebacking core looks absolutely fabulous. Not to mention when we start talking about recruiting, the things that they did across the defensive backs as far as who we brought in, it's going to be incredible, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, defense should be much better. But we weren't bad. We're just used to the last 2 years on defense, and we just didn't see it completely this year. As they played the games, it seemed like defense got better, but the beginning of the game, they would. I mean, they gave up a score like every game, first drive. It felt like so.
Seemed like they had to give up one just to get locked in.
I actually talked about that a little bit somewhere in the middle of the season. One of my things was, I think I know who this team is. I think this is a team that has to taste their own blood a little bit. Like they need to get their lips split. And once they figure that out, they're like, all right, let's go, and then they would sort it out. But I also, the flip side of that coin is it speaks to the depth of knowledge and experience that coaching staff has and their ability to adjust in game, series to series, not halftime, not that kind of let's let it play out. They could actually address it, say, wait, they did this, we didn't expect this, and then adjust in game. So I think that has a lot, says a lot. About the coaching staff that's over there in Athens.
Yeah, how many times did we? Go ahead, guys.
Go
ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, how many times have we seen one of those halftime speeches out of Kirby, especially when it comes to adjustments, and it gets the fan base fired up? I can't even imagine what it does to those players in the locker room. So like you say, when it comes to adjustments, I don't know, and I'm a homer, but I don't know if there is a coaching staff in the country that's any better at getting adjustments done in the second half as far as from what you've seen in the first half to try to get something cleaned up.
And I see in the chat here some of the guys talking about it, and it's a great point that this year's defense is not being graded against the rest of the country. They're being graded against Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann's defenses of the last 2 seasons, which put 15 first-round players into the NFL, right? So it's not fair. I mean, the bottom line is it's not fair, but they're still going to be graded that way. Now, the thing that makes me really excited, and I would have to say is kind of hit and miss for me, because I talked a lot about the youth in this class, the freshmen for this year, and who we might see make an impact. And sure enough, when we got down to November, we started to see those guys like Damon Wilson, Salmon Pimba, Raylan Wilson, CJ Allen. Those dudes were actually taking serious reps, Jonel Aguero. So on one hand, I feel like I got it kind of right. But the thing that I learned was that I didn't get the production from the edge rushers that I thought I was going to get heading into the season. And earlier, I think one of our channel members mentioned this, and he brought up the fact that Michael Williams, I really thought was going to have a big year this year. But the way they used him was he always has his hand in the dirt, but going forward, they're looking to maximize his pass rushing ability based on what we're hearing coming out of Miami right now. So maybe we're going to see
I heard that too.
Yeah, maybe we're going to see him in a stand-up a little bit more moving forward to try to get a little bit more pressure off the edge. But I feel confident in the youth that's there, and they started to grow up this year. They started to show up this year, and I think that moving forward, we're going to get a lot more familiar with those names than maybe the more casual fan is right now. And I don't have the numbers yet. And I talked to our good friend, Roddy Nabolsi over at UGA Sports recently, and I pitched to him that I'm working on an idea. I want to know, and I need some help, because there's so many numbers during recruiting season. You can't keep it all straight. But I want to know how many defensive signees over the last 3 classes, last 4 classes that are still in Athens right now, how many of them, A, ran track, and B, ran a sub 11 in the 100 meters? Because it seems like all those dudes are running 10.9 or better. And when you're sub 11, you're rolling. And if we look at these defenses this coming season and the next couple of years, if those numbers are the way I think they are, I don't see how we can't say that these defenses are not going to be the fastest defenses that we've ever seen in Athens. I can't back it up right now. I don't have the numbers, but I am kicking it around. It's something that I want to be able to track it and say, these guys can A, flat run, but then B, they're doing their stuff the way it's supposed to be done. Like we saw CJ Allen get in there and then turn that ability into playmaking, right? So this seems like a good way to transition from the end of the season into the next big event, which would be recruiting and National Signing Day. Now, we all know that Georgia did, they won signing day. There's no way around it, right? The number one class in the nation. There were top tier players at every level, especially defensively. And of course, we all know about the size along the offensive line this year. Guys, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this National Signing Day. Whoops. Let's talk about what's going on, who's coming in, who's already there, and what you guys think we're going to see moving forward. Initial thoughts on this class, because it's crazy talented.
Could you have signed a better class any way, shape, or form? Now, people can sit there and make the argument for Raiola, but I'm not even going to start in on him. We got the guy that we wanted in Puglisi. But overall, this could end up being one of the better classes that Kirby and his staff have brought in all time. You talk about a guy, especially at the number one positions, at safety, at cornerback, at linebacker. People like to throw around the saying, you don't you retool, you don't reload, you just retool. And that's kind of like where Georgia is right now. There's you just keep going with what you got, bring in more 5-stars, and continue doing what you're doing. And I'm like you, the speed factor is going to be very evident whenever the 2024 season kicks off, especially with some of these guys we brought in.
I agree 100%. I feel like a lot of people made a big deal about the transfer portal and how many people we were losing, and it just kind of blew my mind at how many, like, even Georgia fans just don't understand it. It's just that's the level of talent that we had. I think the first 15 people that entered the portal for Georgia, only one of them played a few snaps in the first game, and none of the other ones played a snap all year. And that's just our depth that's sitting on the bench waiting to play. And those guys could see the writing on the wall with this 2024 class coming in. Some of these guys are going to bump up in front of those guys right away. And so, I'm just excited to see. I just want to see them take the field because they're going to be pretty fast.
Yeah, I was pretty excited when I saw the big uglies that they had signed, especially the size and speed of the line. But then, I mean, we will start true freshmen at free safety and at cornerback, and that's always good for our program. We have Kirby Smart will start freshmen on the defensive in the back, especially if you're fast enough and you're willing to go make plays. So I think that those guys, they see the writings on the wall. They see that, oh yeah, I'm going to get in here and I can come and start and play. As far as the transfer portal. It's like you said, I look at it and I try to look at the names that actually played, and there's only a few names on there that actually played. But also at the same opportunity, I don't want you to stick around if you're not going to be able to get on the field and do anything big, because we got 85 coveted spots, right? So those spots got to go to the guys that are going to be able to go on the field and be able to do great things for us. And so if the writing's on the wall for you and it's best for you to go to another school, I'm going to tip my hat off to you and I'm going to wish you the best. But I'm also going to be looking forward to them big dogs that we got coming in that I know that you're leaving, because they're going to come in and take some of those playing spots. So I'm cool with it. I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing them fly around for sure.
Well, and I want to just to come at you just a little bit here, Tim, just a little follow up. So I hear you on the safety position call with the true freshman, but that means you're assuming that Javon Buller's going to go pro, correct?
That's assuming. Assuming, yeah.
Okay, just making sure, because if you were calling for him to beat him out or something, I was going to have to be like, well, maybe.
No, he ain't going to be. No, I don't see that, but I understand the whole, going to the draft. For most of these kids, the reason why you're at Georgia, the reason why you're playing football is to make it to pros. And so if that's your next dream, and you're not going to play for the Falcons because they don't ever pick up any Georgia players. Hopefully you go to the Eagles so I can get another shirt that says "Fly Dogs Fly." That's the only thing I can do, because they never get any of Georgia team. But I wish those guys nothing but the best. I want every one of them to go pro that goes pro. I still follow them no matter where they go. So
yeah.
I wish them nothing but the best still.
I
My
thought we were going to keep this all positive, and then you got to go talk about the Falcons on me.
well, see now I am born and raised here in Georgia. I am not afflicted with the Falcons disease. I am a lifelong Raider fan, believe it or not, but they've been down for the better part of 2 decades, so it's hard to get too fired up about them. But I'm a legit Raider fan. I don't have any pain associated with it. I don't root against the Falcons in any way. If they do good, great. That's not my squad. But so the only thing I would say here is, Kirby said it in the signing day presser. And the way I see the transfer portal is, and I really don't like this term, but I can't think of a better one, is it's just sort of processing players. Because as all you guys have touched on, some of these dudes are seeing the fact that, you know what, I have time left and I'm not going to get a shot here and I want to make the most of my opportunity, right? So that's fine. Take your shot, go do what you need to do. Some dudes, like you said, maybe they see they're being recruited over already and they're like, oh, I'm losing snaps. Whether or not I'm still the guy or not, it's not the point. I'm losing snaps. And so everybody has to make their own decision, but the portal offers those guys an opportunity to process themselves into a better situation. So if that's the deal, good on them, because it's like Silver said, there's only 85 spots. So Kirby needs them all. And he's going to be like, listen, I need players that are going to be in these spots. So I agree with you 100%. And the key thing that I think so many people fail to realize is that when you look at a season like 2023, where you have so many freshmen that play, going into this season, the roster was made up, it was like 52%, I believe was the last number I heard from Kirby himself, of the players on the roster in 2023 were in year 1 or year 2 in the program. Moving into year 2024, that number could be anywhere between 40 and 60% of the roster are going to be in year 1 or year 2. The only way that you can have a productive football team in the fall is if those dudes enroll early as mid-years, get the bowl practices, get the spring practices, get 6 months of time in the gym, in the system, in the nutrition program to have any kind of shot to play in the fall. And even those guys, then really you don't see or hear from them until the second half of the season. But the only way you can do that is if you get these bodies in here early, which means you have to have a spot for these players to come into. So I see it as the wave of the future, because if we know anything about Georgia right now, they are on the model of high school recruiting, player development, and culture. And that's what they beat every day. And you got to have the right dudes in there who are going to buy into that system. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But so far, the system is working seemingly just as Kirby is, wanting it to. Now, does that mean that they don't lose a player or two here or there that makes you a worse football team? No, because I can point to A.D. Mitchell, right? Georgia's better if A.D. Mitchell's on the team. Say what you want about Bear. He did what he wanted to do. Georgia's not going to hand him a starting spot,
Right.
but Georgia's better if he's on the roster, and he's not. So, it's just one of those things where guys are going to make their choices. There are a few this year that have made me scratch my head just a little bit. But, everybody's got to do what they want to do. And it's like you said, we wish them the best. I mean, we are not in their shoes. We don't know their position exactly. So, anything you guys want to say to kind of put a bow on the recruiting part of this discussion?
Well, can I jump in and say that we also benefit from the portal, right? So
Absolutely.
I mean, we can't go through this this live feed without talking about ETN, can we? I mean, ETN from Florida is it's a huge pickup, right? And I understand why Florida's fans are, man, they are livid, and I get it. Like, I understand, like, if you're going to lose somebody, you don't want them to go to Florida or Georgia Tech or Alabama or any of those places. But that is a huge pickup for us.
It is, and it's twofold, and it happened twice in the same cycle, once through traditional recruiting and once through the portal. Because not only are you getting a football player that's going to help your team, and in ETN's case, immediately, right, by quality SEC depth, but you're taking what could be a pivotal player from a division rival or a conference rival. And It's even better that it's the friggin' Gators. They pulled them right out.
Yep.
So there's
100%.
there's ETN, and then the young man from Dublin. Shout out to the DUB, Nasir Johnson, who just signed with Georgia. Big nose, possible 3 technique. You know, he's another one of those big bodies on the D line. Was a Florida commit, and then he flipped about a month or so back. And it's twofold. You make your team better, and you absolutely make their team worse. And you get to rub a little salt in the wound, and we all like that. At least I do.
Oh, yeah.
And don't forget, Phil's right. We got that receiver from Vanderbilt too.
Yes,
Pretty good.
we were, and we're going to become more familiar with these names, right? Colby Young from Miami, the young man from Vanderbilt. We're going to get more comfortable with these dudes moving forward, but they all look to feel a specific niche, right, in what the Dogs like to do. You can see, okay, this guy is this guy, right? Oh, and in case everybody's not too familiar with London Humphreys, the young man from Vanderbilt, listen, I understand that he's also a white dude that plays wide receiver, but do not draw the McConkey comparison here. It's a different player. We're talking about an Arian Smith type player here, a guy that's going to take the lid off the defense. That's what this kid can do. Okay. He's not running a full route tree right now, but he can get down the field and open it up. So just a little word to the wise when you're talking to your friends. Don't make that mistake. That's a rookie mistake. Don't do that. Don't draw that comparison. It's a different dude. So yeah, National Signing Day, I feel pretty doggone good about it. I don't know. You can't do better than the number 1 class, the number 1 linebacker in the country, the number 1 safety in the country, the number 1 all-purpose back in the country. Who am I forgetting? The number 1 corner in the country. There you go. Come on, y'all. You got to be happy with what Kirby and the boys are doing on the recruiting front right now. So that brings us up to this week, the week that knows no time, right? Everybody just feels full all the time, and football's constantly on the television. That's what this week is. Don't know what day it is, but I know I'm not hungry and there's a game on. That's what's happening. We are staring on the barrel of the Orange Bowl. So now there's a lot of people who had a lot of things to say about Georgia and Florida State heading into the Orange Bowl right now. And frankly, I'm interested to see what you guys had to say about it. I am firmly in the camp of every game matters. Can't wait to watch my Dogs. And based off of everything that I've spent the last 20 minutes talking about, right? Roster, development, young players, recruiting, all that stuff. I have run out of fingers and toes to count the reasons I personally am excited about this game. So, Tim, why are you excited about the Orange Bowl?
So yes, very much so, and I will tell you, people that don't like bowl games and people that don't like this, to me, is crazy, because this is the first snapshot of next year. Like,
Yeah.
this is an excellent opportunity for a lot of teams to see players that you didn't get to see, or to see what your next year is going to look like. So for me, I'm like, all right, we got kids coming in early. We know, I've heard that we had a couple players that didn't make the trip, so maybe they're not playing, Brock Bowers and such. And I wish those guys nothing but the best. But I want to see what next year looks like. So I am completely fine with that. So sign me up, because it just gives me a little bit to look forward to next year. And anything beating any Florida team, you have to understand, I'm a Gator hater, but to 1,000 degree. But if Georgia Tech beating UCF, I'm okay with it. I am okay with every Florida team losing. And so I want to go down there and beat them by 55 and 60 points. And I don't care how many of your kids don't play. I don't care about none of that. I just want to see you get beat.
Amen.
Well said.
I like it. That's good right there. We can all stand on that one. What you got for me, Brett? What do you think about the Orange Bowl?
Well, I agree with him. I think, there's a lot of people for Florida State that are going to not be playing in this game. And, of course, you're going to have Florida State people and everybody else that hates Georgia saying, well, of course, Georgia's going to win this game because of that. Georgia's going to – it didn't matter if they had all their starters. It didn't matter if they had their main quarterback guy that got injured. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Georgia's going to win this game no matter what. It really wasn't going to matter. I have a belief that I feel like there's a chance FSU doesn't walk out on the field. I don't know. I think it's just I don't know if they boycott, or I just feel like there's this chance that they just don't come out on the field. Um, but I just feel like Georgia's going to win. Georgia's going to play. Kirby's going to make them show up, and it's going to be another Hawaii from 2007.
So before I let you go here, Dogfather, I want to follow up on that. Let's just say Florida State did want to make some sort of statement, right? Not come out at when their team's announced or something, and still play the game. Listen, it would be within their right to do that. Maybe the coach wants to take a stand for his players. I could get it, but in no way would I think it's cool or okay if they somehow decided to not play. Now, I think the superstructure here, that's not going to happen. The game's going to happen. They're going to play. There's too much money and everything else involved in it, right? I mean, you've accepted the bid, so you're there. But if they did want to do something, I could understand it. But I don't expect it. That's just my position. I think Coach Norvell has too much respect for his opponent to do that. But that's just my take on it. I don't know. Dogfather, what you got?
Yeah, I understand exactly what Brett's saying, but the negative ramifications going forward for any team that accepted a bowl bid and then didn't go and play could be astronomical, just, for any bowl where they get invited in the next couple of years. But the biggest thing is what both of these guys said about all the extra reps that you get your younger players before you get into the 2024 season. I don't know if you guys know my good friend Logan Booker. He's over on Twitter, but he made a very good point about Florida today. Their last practice was the day of Thanksgiving. You think it doesn't matter for all of our guys to be able to be on that field, regardless of whether they're sophomores, freshmen, whatever else, being able to get these extra reps, and they're not. That's a team that's not able to do it. That is a huge benefit for all of these guys going forward. And personally, this is another game for me to see the University of Georgia play a doggone football game.
That's right.
That's the bottom line right there. Silver Britches, I want to see them run. That's how I feel about it. Now, so those are general thoughts. Is there anything, and this is for all of you, is there anything that you in particular would like to see or are looking for in this game? And I understand we're going to have young players potentially, but is there anything in particular, or is it just I just want to watch my dogs play?
I want to see FSU's first drive down the field go for a 3-and-out.
I think we might get that one. That could happen.
No score on their first drive. That's all I care about.
I want to see Brett Thorson be so upset on Twitter he puts himself back into the transfer portal because he doesn't get to punt again.
Also, shout out! I love it. I love it. I fell into a Brett Thorson hole just the other day. Went back and just sort of skimmed over his tweets from the last little bit here. Man, I just love. I don't know. I think I'm in love with Australia just in general. Every person I've ever met from Aussie, man, they are fun and they help me be a cooler, more relaxed individual. So I'm all about some Brett Thorson.
I'm just looking forward to a football game. I've been here, so I was supposed to I have a ritual because I'm in Texas and I'm close to a lot of different stadiums. So we're right next to TCU, and normally I go to the Armed Forces Bowl because it's 15 minutes down the road. Well, it was freezing cold and it was raining, so I didn't go. And then I was supposed to go to the Surf Pro First Responders Bowl today, but it's cold as hell outside, and I decided not to go. So I just want to watch some football. That's where I'm at. I have tickets to go watch Mizzou and Ohio State play in Jerry World. So on Friday, so we'll be there. I'm gonna put on Georgia shit and sit on Mizzou's side.
Attaboy.
And say go Dogs. That's my plan.
Attaboy. I'm with you. I was on Mizzou the whole season. Man, even sitting at SEC Media Days when I was trying to figure out my predicted order for finish, I was like, y'all, Mizzou is better than you think they are. And I don't know if you guys caught my other show with my brother, the whole course of the season. I tried to drag him over to the Mizzou side, and he fought me every step of the way. And then we got down to the end of the season, and I finally got him there. I'm like, admit that this is a good football team. They may not be, top tier, but
Yeah.
that's a really good football team. And
It's a good football
so
team.
I finally drug him over there. So I felt like that was a win for me over the course of the season. So that sort of puts to bed 2023. So that means we have to talk about what's going to go on in 2024. And you can see it right there. Now, this is not an easy schedule, but it is a schedule that I am absolutely excited for the Dogs to play. Now, based on what we've talked about so far, I think you guys are going to be right on board with me. I mean, we open with Clemson. Listen, I grew up a half hour from Clemson, okay, in Georgia, but a half hour from Clemson. So this one always makes me smile. I'm always going to be excited about this one. We've got BVG and now JDJ, both in the blue up in Kentucky. So that was interesting. Alabama on the road. Come on now. Who's not going to watch that game and be fired up for it? At
That's
night.
right.
That's right. Auburn comes to town, Deep South's oldest rivalry, and we get to see the new and improved Hugh Freeze-a-lots, right? So that's going to be interesting. Then, look, Texas, we got to go to Austin. Then we get the hated Gators, and we get the semi-pro team that Lane apparently is putting together. The week after that, Tennessee, if you didn't hear, has a new starting quarterback. So, what is it they call him? Something like yada yada, I'm about to leave you. That dude,
Yeah.
he's now starting for Tennessee. And then of course, we got the techies there to round it out. Now, again, I just see nothing but fun and excitement on this schedule. What do you see, fellas?
I see the same exact thing. And I want to tell you, I don't know if you looked at it really close when the schedule was up there just then, but there's a couple of
I can put it back
really
up.
big caveats to take away from the way that schedule looks. We've got, and I had the schedule up in front of me. I just lost it. But anyway, going to having a bye week before you go to Alabama is huge. And I'm taking nothing away from Mississippi State, but being able to have Mississippi State before you go to Texas, again, to me, that's big. And then the bye week before Florida, I think the schedule plays out beautifully for the University of Georgia.
What you got, Brett?
I agree. One of my biggest concerns is the way that the playoff committee going to 12 teams is. I'm concerned how that's going to affect your conference championships. I mean, if you look at this year's schedule and say that there was 12 teams in, with Lad McConkey being injured and Brock Bowers not being 100%, neither one of those guys being 100%, and the teams just kind of beat up a little bit. If it's this year with 12 teams and that scenario played out, I'm not saying that it's a give me game, but I think that if you're Kirby Smart, you're in. Whether you win or lose that game, why risk the injury to those guys? So I feel like my biggest concern going into this year is the conference championships not necessarily meaning as much. And then,
100%.
that's just my concern.
Let's hear it, Tim.
That literally was that was one of my only concerns was if it only matters to take less losses, right? And conference championships just really aren't going to matter because it's about trying to get into the 12-team playoff. You sit people, you rest, you don't care if you're in. I think I definitely could see conference championships taking a little bit of a hit on how they matter. Now, as far as the schedule is concerned, I'm hugely looking forward to it, being that I live in Texas and I'm going to be down there in Austin for that Alabama game, and I'm trying to get as many of my Georgia friends to come on up. They can stay at the house, and then we'll go down and enjoy ourselves down in Texas. But I'm looking forward to just being able to watch that football game and close person. And then, I'm not gonna lie, Alabama still makes me sweat, even though it's Alabama and we've gotten one against them. I'm never a fan of playing Alabama now. I'd much rather somebody else beat them so we don't have to see them. But it is what it is. If they're on the schedule, we just got to play.
Yeah, I that schedule, the game at Alabama. I mean, it's just going to be tough. There's no way around it, and of course, it's going to be a night game. It's just going to be a challenge. But that's not something that I don't think anybody in this group would run from. Right, a challenge.
No.
We want our team to step up there and take them on. And there were a couple things. Y'all mentioned the 12-team playoff. I think there's a couple of different things there. One, on the conference championships, and I know you guys were talking about, will it matter in factoring into who gets in and who doesn't, if I heard you right. But just in general, the opportunity to go win a championship, I don't think is diminished in any way. At least I don't believe that Coach Smart and the team is going to view it that way, because it's a chance to put another number on the wall, if you know what I mean. But I completely get the point about, will it matter, will it not matter, right, in terms of who's getting in. And the darker side of the 12 team, and this could be fodder for a future discussion, but I think that you're going to get to a point, speaking of sitting players and things like that, where earlier and earlier in the process, you're going to see players that think they have an NFL future decide that they are going to sit out. So earlier than the bowl game. So late regular season, midway through the season. Just don't be surprised if somebody gets dinged, and they're like, I don't know if I want to push it to come back. I don't think we're going to make the 12 team anyway. I just think it might have more of an NFL feel, which as a college football purist makes me pretty sad. But I just think it could be an inevitable destination when it comes to college opt-outs for some of these guys. I hope not, but it could be the situation. So that's kind of a general overlook. And we talked about a game here or there, certain games that stood out to us. I mean, if you sat here today and looked at 2024 and our Georgia team based on what we know about them right now, this is not something we're going to hold your feet to. What would your prognosis for the season be? Do you think that this squad rolling into 2024, given the new arrangement of the conference and of the playoff, is a legitimate national championship contender? Do you think that they are simply a playoff contender? Do you think they can win the conference? My position is, I'll go in reverse. I think they can win the conference. I think they absolutely are a playoff contender. And again, injuries, stuff happens, right? The ball bounces funny because it's shaped funny. But I do believe that this Georgia Bulldog squad is going to be right there as one of the teams that should be considered as a favorite, maybe not the favorite, but a favorite to contend for a national title in 2024. Am I completely delusional with red and black glasses on here, or what do y'all think?
I know Jay wanted to say something.
Well, I was gonna back up to that SEC championship point first. It's not so much not wanting to win the SEC championship; it's what you put at risk if you don't. Whereas you probably risk being at home, being either 5 through 8 as a seed, and possibly going on the road as a 9 through 12 is the biggest factor that I see. And not getting that bye week. If you get the bye week if you win the SEC championship, but you risk being at home or on the road if you lose that game is the big thing. To your point about this coming season, do I believe that the University of Georgia could possibly put themselves in a position to win another national championship? I absolutely do. The biggest thing about a 12-team playoff, and this is the one hot take I'll put out there, as long as Kirby Paul Smart is the head coach at the University of Georgia and he continues to recruit and his staff continues to recruit the way that he does right now, there is no possible way the University of Georgia ever misses a 12-team playoff.
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.
100% agree with that. That's the difference between watching, and I loved Mark Richt. Don't get me wrong, I loved him. I loved him as a coach. If your kid was playing, you wanted him to go play for him, right? He didn't just teach football; he taught life, and I loved him. But that's the difference between him and Kirby Smart. When we were down in a football game back in those days, it was deflating, right? If you were down a touchdown or 10 points, you were like, well, we're not coming back in this game. With Kirby, it doesn't feel that way. We were down a touchdown in almost every game this year, and all the people around me are like, "Oh no, here we go!" And I'm like, "I'm not worried. I know that we're the better team. Like, we're gonna win in 2 or 3 facets of this game, and it's not gonna matter." And that's how I feel like with what Jay said, 100%. As long as Kirby Smart is our coach, unless he just starts giving up on recruiting and doing the things that he's doing, we're not going anywhere. And I don't know if y'all saw my TikTok video. I'm a firm believer with the evidence that we have in hand that Kirby Smart is a huge reason. Nothing against Saban, but Saban had a 13-year career before Kirby Smart became the DC, and he had 1 title and 1 top 5 recruiting class. 1. So for 13 years, I mean, I'm not going to say he wasn't successful, but he had 1 of those things, and everything changed overnight. And now knowing what Kirby does, I feel personally like Kirby Smart was what changed recruiting there, because it was the defense that changed for them for many years before the offense started to follow suit. And when you start winning national championships, of course, even your offense recruiting is going to pick up. And I think that's what happened. I mean, you look at AJ McCarron, it's kind of like Stetson Bennett. Like they're just not NFL talent, right? Like it's just not going to happen for them. But under that system with that defense, you get more opportunities than the other team. You're going to score more points. You're going to win. So I'm a big believer in Kirby Smart is the biggest thing in college football. He will surpass Nick Saban in my eyes. I just feel like that's the reason that we're where we're at. We're not going anywhere. We're going to compete every year. We might not win it, but we're going to compete.
And just before you jump in here, Tim, just alignment, I think, is what had to happen. And to get Kirby to come to Athens, alignment and buy-in had to occur. And once he got those guarantees that he could get what he asked for, he has done the rest. Tim?
So yeah, I think that I bounce off the same thing. If you keep Kirby Smart and you understand that he's going to be the man maker. He's setting the tone for this team and for everything. I believe also the same thing that you're talking about as far as Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart was the focal point of that defense and the focal point of a lot of things that ran through Alabama, and he brought a lot of everything that he knows that he got to learn from Saban, and he already knew when he brought it up here to Georgia, and they gave him the keys. They said, "Here, run it the way you want to run it, and as long as you let him run it the way he wants to run it, and you continue getting number 1, number 2 recruiting classes, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be competing for national championships every single year. Doesn't mean you're going to win them, but you should definitely be in the running and competing for national championships every single year." Now, Georgia fans have to understand that competing for national championships are great. And you can't get all freaking bad, willy-nilly, and hurt when you don't win them, because it still is a marquee program to be there competing for one.
That's right. Absolutely right. And you stack year on year on year on year. I mean, after the win in 21, they asked Kirby, what is the difference? How did you break through? What is the difference? And his answer was very simple. It's like baseball. It's about at bats. You have to build the thing and then put yourself in position to compete and know that football's still a game that's played on the field. Things happen. You're not going to win them all, but if you're there and you're swinging, you're going to win your fair share. And I'm happy with that personally as a Bulldog fan moving forward, because in the meantime, it's the ride that gets you there, right? It's the 3 consecutive 12-0 seasons. It's the 3 consecutive 8-0 inside the SEC conference seasons. It's all of the stuff that gets you there. And like we said earlier, only one team can win it. And I'm not tying my entire football identity to that one game. That's just not how I get down around the sport. So, fellas, this hour has flown by. I've actually kept you into overtime here. I hope you don't mind too much. I only have one more thing that I'd like to leave you here with, and that is, first off, thank you all so much for making time to be here with me. I think this has been a fun discussion. It's good to see a different perspective, right? And we certainly have it spread around here tonight, so that's good. If you will, I want to encourage you, since you guys are like running the roost in Dog Nation over there on TikTok and I'm just hanging out, if you will, jump back over there when you get a chance, make a little TikTok video and ask your guys that and ladies that follow you over there, if they saw you here tonight, give you some feedback. So if you're brave enough, jump on the old TikTok and ask for some feedback and see how we did, if they got to check us out. Because I think we had a pretty good time over here. I'm going to do that, and I would encourage you to do the same. So, parting shots. Do you have anything you want to leave Dog Nation with here before we get into the Orange Bowl and then into the long stretch before we get back between the hedges? Brett, kick it off for us. Anything you want to leave the people with for now?
The biggest thing is that we should still be able to talk about Georgia football even after this next game, because this next year coming up is going to be super exciting. I go back to recruiting, like we said. I did the research. I think it's like over the last 20 years, the team that wins the national championship has been in the top 3 in recruiting the year before, all but I think once or twice. So doing, what Kirby's doing in recruiting is really what stands out. And obviously that's what put Nick Saban where he's at, as well as the recruiting that they've had. I don't think people realize that that Alabama, when they took the field to start this year, Alabama not only had 3 of their 4 classes as number 1 classes, but all 3 of them were top 10 recruiting classes all time. So they all were number 1 classes, and they were all in the top 10 of all time recruiting classes. They had more talent on that field the last 2 years than any other team. And Georgia's not far behind. We have a really talented team, but for us to hold them back for the last 2 years has been amazing, and still 3 points away from doing it this year. So I'm just excited for that battle to continue. I'm really excited to see what happens to Alabama when Saban's gone, because that's going to affect their recruiting, and a lot of those players that decide between Georgia and Alabama, I don't know where y'all think they're going to go, but a lot of them are going to be coming here. And so I seem to think that Saban might be done within the next 1 to 2 years. He's going to go down as a great, nothing against him, but who's Alabama going to get? That's the question that comes up. I don't think anybody that can compete with Smart. So that's what I'm excited about.
That's going to be interesting. I would put my money today on Sarkisian, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. What you got, Dogfather?
I have asked that question probably a gazillion times when I go live. Who is following Nick Saban to Alabama? And this is what I'll tell folks. If you follow the greatest coach that has ever walked a college football sideline, there's only one place that you can go when you step on that field, and that's down. Mm-hmm. So I would just say be very wary of who you get over there, because the pressure is going to be immense. With that said, talking about national championships and how good it's been, look, I just wanted to get one, since we've had such a long haul in between 1980, man, and now we've got 2. We're in the running to be in it every year, regardless of whether we win it or not. My God, what a ride this has been. And just to wrap up, Tim, I will definitely be in Texas this year, so I'll be out there to see you, my man. We've got our plans, reservations, all that stuff. We're good. So I'm looking forward to 24.
I want to come.
We are. Hey, let's go. Everybody come on out there. And let me say this to the folks in the chat. I know that Randy brought this up. If you did come over here from TikTok from my live a while ago, thank you very much. I'm planning on going live when I leave here again. We're going to talk about it. Thanks for all the comments and stuff. I know Randy appreciates that too. If you're one of his regulars, appreciate you guys. This was a great time, and I really, really hope that we can do this again soon.
All right, Silver. What you leaving us with?
So I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come out here and talk some football and hang out with some people that care about Georgia sports and Georgia football just as much as I do. But I will tell you, so I'm a Georgia football fan, but I have girls, and so I am a gym dog. So I'll pay attention to the gymnasts. I am a gym dog. I love gymnastics. I'm a huge basketball fan because my daughter plays basketball. So I stay on with the Lady Dogs basketball. Now, I will say my love goes towards Connecticut when it comes to basketball for some strange reason. So I've always been a UConn fan when it comes to basketball. But I will tell you, being out here in Texas and running into Georgia fans they're out here in Texas, it's the coolest thing. It's really cool to connect through college football. You can always have a good conversation with somebody about college football. It don't matter where I'm sitting. If I got a Georgia shirt on, I'm in Texas, somebody stops me and talks college football. And so it's always good to have people that love to talk the same thing you like to talk. So whenever you guys want to do it again, let me know. I'll definitely sign up. And now that I know that we're on Eastern time and not Central time, because I'm over here thinking it was 6:30 Texas time. I'm really glad you texted me because I would have been still sitting here waiting on you. But yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great having you fellas on here. Now that we've made our way down to the end, I do want to take a second and point out that the chat has been great tonight. A lot of new faces in here. That's great. A lot of familiar faces. Channel members that are in here, thank you so much for your continued support. I appreciate that. You guys know I love you, and I certainly can't do this if you're not in there supporting the show and supporting what we do over here. I appreciate you very, very much. Tell a friend. Check us out in the future. But until next time, I mean, this is one of those things where I felt like the YouTube world can become a bit of an echo chamber, and I wanted to have this opportunity to be like, let's inject a little different perspective from the guys who might be, a little bit quicker on the points, right? Because TikTok, you keep it moving, and so that's a good thing, I think, from my opinion. So we're gonna see how it goes, guys. I appreciate you so very much for being on here with me, and I think you can all join me in the way that I always end all of my broadcasts, which is just a hearty "Go Dogs."
Go
Go
Dogs!
Dogs!
There it is.
Go Dogs!
We'll see you guys next time. Y'all have a good evening.
Told them, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.